During my first experience living alone in the apartment I rented, I had a terrifying experience. That experience made me believe in the existence of ghosts. After finishing my student life through job hunting activities, I found work in Osaka Prefecture. So I left my parents to live alone. At that time, I was sent elsewhere for training. So I had to find accommodation on my own. It was my first step into society. And at just over 20 years old, I didn't have much money or qualifications for a good life. So I decided to find the cheapest apartment possible. Although the company covered 60% of my rent. To save more money, I found a decrepit apartment over 40 years old. It was a 2-story rental property with 10 rooms. It looked very old. I rented one with a room of 6 tatami mats and one of 4.5 tatami mats. But the rent was only 40,000 yen. Although it was old, it was my first castle. So I decided to approach it with this mindset and work hard for a few years. In the following days, I commuted between the apartment and the workplace every day, with hardly any free time. So when I returned to the apartment, I just went to sleep. Time passed quickly, about half a year. One day, on a day off, my university friend came to visit me. We decided to spend a leisurely time in my apartment. At that time, I went to the station to pick him up. And then we walked to my apartment. He looked up at the apartment, looking very uneasy. He said he had a feeling. He felt there was something inside that made him uncomfortable. So his steps also stopped, unwilling to enter the apartment. At that time, I jokingly said he was too sensitive and overthinking. Then I persuaded him not to think too much and brought him into the house. But as soon as we entered the house, he started saying strange things again. He said someone was staring at him. There was something there. At first, I thought he was joking, thinking he had a vivid imagination. I told him not to mind, and we didn't discuss those things anymore. He stayed at my house for about 2 hours. Then he went home. That night, around midnight, I lay in bed getting ready to sleep. It was a very hot summer. There was no air conditioning in the apartment, so I had the fan on. Just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard the sound of the fan, seemingly accompanied by the sound of someone walking on the floor. Listening to the sound, I felt someone was there. I immediately opened my eyes, turned my head to look, but there was no one there. I thought I must have misheard. But every time I closed my eyes, I heard the sound. And every time I turned to look, the sound stopped. This went on several times. I felt very uncomfortable, very nauseous. So I turned my face to the other side, facing the window side. And when I turned over, I saw a shadow of a long-haired woman reflected on the curtain. In that instant, I was startled. I screamed and dove under the covers. I felt my legs go weak, my heart racing faster and faster. I was shocked by the fear I had never experienced before. And while I was still being consumed by fear, this time I felt someone was on the covers, and they were trying to pull them open. I clutched the covers tightly, not letting them be pulled open. This struggle lasted for maybe more than 2 hours. Finally, maybe out of exhaustion, I unknowingly fell asleep. The next morning when I woke up, I wondered when I fell asleep. But in the process, I immediately remembered the experience from last night. I stared quietly at the rotating electric fan, and I plunged back into that terrifying feeling. Then I remembered what my friend said he felt uncomfortable about. At that time, he might have really felt something supernatural. In the following days, for a long time, I dared not turn off the lights to sleep. And every time I recalled that experience, my body went cold and my face sweated. I really didn't want to experience those supernatural experiences again.